Our culture is completely obsessed with celebrities. Each year when the Oscars rolls around, we got about 30 to 40 million people that tune in to watch their favorite films being honored for Best Picture, craftsman, artistry. We call it the Oscars, and people are obsessed with it. And when you get this little golden statue, you become a star. What's interesting about this is in the Egyptian culture, they also had a little statue that represented the god Ptah. And see, when an Egyptian king died, it was believed that his spirit went into the belt of Orion and he then became a star. Very interesting that we still follow after Egyptian gods. There's a lot of these different award shows that pop up throughout the year. There's the Grammys, the Emmys. They honor different aspects of the entertainment industry, but they are all one in the same. Now listen to what Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert call this little image that they give to each other.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here tonight.
Good evening, godless sodomites.
What are you doing?
I'm bringing the truth, John. We're in Hollywood, the belly of the beast.
You can't just read the prompter?
I'm reading the prompter in here. You can read that pablum.
Award show banter is not pablum. Reality television celebrates the human condition. By illuminating what's extraordinary in the ordinary person. We're here to honor achievement in that category.
By giving you a golden idol to worship. Kneel before your God, Babylon!
You see, Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart know exactly where they stand in this city of Babylon. And it's very interesting, Jim Carrey also echoes the same sentiments at a different award show.
I'm here tonight, as all of us are, to pay tribute to an American icon, an actor, a filmmaker, and truly one of my personal heroes, Mr. Clint Eastwood. I'm also here because the AFI is paying me $20,003, making me the highest paid megalomaniacal boy king in all of Babylon!
When Kathy Griffith was given an Emmy Award, she lets us know exactly who is her God now.
We're gonna run the unedited version.
What?
And be warned for you people, you may be offended, maybe. Watch.
Now look, a lot of people come up here and they thank Jesus for this award. I want you to know that no one had less to do with this award than Jesus. He didn't help me a bit. So all I can say is, suck it, Jesus, this award is my God now!
You see, a lot of these celebrities are very aware of the fact that they are treated like gods.
Well, this year, and I'm thankful to the Oscar gods, we have a great crop of films.
You are, of course, nominated this evening. How does it feel being nominated tonight?
Always an incredible honor. The other names of the gentlemen are all gods as far as a category concerned.
It's very interesting when you look up where the word Oscar actually comes from. It's Scandinavian and Old English in its origin, and it means divine strength or divine spear. Divine, of course, means of, from, or like a god, and a spear is a weapon. Is it possible, brothers and sisters, that Satan is using these celebrities and movies as godlike weapons against us? Up until 1999, the Oscars was held at a building called the Shrine, which was founded by William Florence and Walter Fleming, two high-ranking Scottish Rite Freemasons. Hollywood has long been interested in Freemasonry. Gene Autry, John Wayne, Nat King Cole, Duke Ellington, C.C. DeMille, Clark Gable, Walt Disney, Oliver Hardy, you name it, the list goes on. Many celebrities have come out and admitted their connection to Freemasonry. In the book Morals and Dogma, written by Albert Pike, on page 321, Freemasons let us know exactly who their God is. It says Lucifer, the light bearer, strange and mysterious name given to the spirit of darkness. Lucifer, the son of the morning. It is he who bears the light. And with it splendors intolerable, blinds feeble, sensual, or selfish souls. Doubt it not. When the movie Life is Beautiful was awarded at the Oscars, the camera quickly pulls back and shows a wide of the stage. When you pause it, you can see elements of Freemasonry built into the very set. If you look at a Masonic tracing board, a tool a Mason uses to teach and educate people involved in Freemasonry how to spot things that are connected to that organization, you can see the checkered floor, you can see the archways, you can see the sun motif in the background. All of these are letting you know exactly who owns this organization. When the Oscars moved from 1999 from the Shriners Building to the Kodak Theater, where it currently resides today, you can still see a lot of these elements of Freemasonry incorporated into the stage. You have the sun motif in the ceiling. You have the checkered flags upon the stage and the arches. Outside of the Kodak Theater, you have the gate to Ishtar, and you have Babylonian gods put on the outside of the gate. Outside of the Kodak Theater, you have the gate to Ishtar, and you have Babylonian gods put on the outside of the gate. And you have Babylonian gods put on the outside of the gate. The whole area surrounding the Kodak Theater was designed after a 1916 movie called Intolerance, where they recreated the very set that they had for Babylon. They have the same exact elephants. They have the same exact gate of Ishtar. They have the same exact Babylonian gods over the top of the gates. You see, if you go and visit the very home of the Oscars, where they hold it each year, you can see a plaque on the wall that says the Babylonian Court. At the 2016 Oscars for Best Cinematography Award, the camera shows you the stage and you see an unmistakable Tower of Babel embedded into the design.
And then we launched into the first take, and two voices came out of view. Do you remember this? two voices, and they were simultaneous words, but they were two levels of sound. And I looked over at you. You were amazed. I was amazed, and you said, "Well, sure, Cheryl, I'm many different people." I said, "No, Jack, you're channeling."
So they all know exactly what she's talking about. That's why they're like...
because they all talk about that.
Two different voices simultaneously. You couldn't try that.
Yeah.
You cannot produce that.
No idea.
You know
That's
what I
like
mean?
textbook demonic possession.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've
That
actually
doesn't even-
heard of that before,
Yeah,
too.
that doesn't even feel new age, and what I saw, that seems like straight demonic.
Right? These guys are literally tapping into this spiritualistic world to help them undertake these crazy rules. That's why I really... Many of you have probably heard of Aleister Crowley, right?
Yep.
So I kind of want to just set the stage with this. If you don't know that much about Aleister Crowley, he's kind of like the modern version of the most occultic person. He used a lot of magic and sorcery, and Hollywood's been obsessed with this guy for a long time. He was on the Beatles cover. There's a lot of connections between modern day movies and his writing, but he wrote a book.
Can you define the occult in like a sentence?
Sure. The occult is really using supernatural means, magic, spells, sorcery, and specifically to get what you want in this world. A lot of what we heard from Leah and her talking about the New Age movement is really like The Secret and really dealing with thinking about yourself and how you could manifest those things. This is kind of like that, but with sort of like up a few notches kind of a thing, you know? So he wrote a book called Magic and Practice and Theory. Listen to what he says. There are three main methods for invoking any deity. So you want to invoke a god into your life. He said the third method is the dramatic and perhaps the most attractive of all. Certainly it is to the artist's temperament, for it appeals to the imagination through his aesthetic sense. Let me put that in layman's terms for you. If you want to invoke a spirit into your life, he's saying that one of the three great ways to do this is through acting.
Wow.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting that Hollywood is very into this guy. Socrates, he wrote a lot about the muse. What is a muse, do you know?
An inspiration, right?
An inspiration, what gives you your inspiration? And this is what he says. In like manner, the muse, first of all, inspires men herself, because they are inspired and possessed. They are simply inspired to utter that which the muse impels them to do. And you talked a little bit about this on the show. It's like, you've got these voices that are talking to you and inspiring you to do this or to do that, right?
And kind of showing you a slideshow of some new thing or whatever,
Right. So Socrates is saying the same thing. For not by art or by knowledge do you say what you say, but by possession.
Wow.
Which is kind of an interesting idea that he was bringing out. This came from a book called Actors on Acting. Now, I'm going to go over some history, okay? So this you may or may not have ever heard of these kind of actors. These are well before your guys' time, and well before ours, actually, contrary to maybe your belief. Have you ever heard of Rudolph Valentino?
No.
Okay, Rudolph Valentino was like the Brad Pitt of the 1920s. You have heard of
black and white Brad Pitt.
Okay, you know who Brad Pitt is. Okay, we're on the same page
Black
here.
and white Brad Pitt.
Yes, literally. This guy was literally so immensely famous. His movies were all about like passion and love, and he would always get the girl, and he was like this ladies' man, right? And when Rudolph Valentino would go out in public, people were so obsessed with him that there was these crowds that would form around him, and he often had to walk around with police officers because it was like riots would almost happen, right? This guy was immensely famous. But what people don't realize is that actually the movies that Valentino made were from his wife, Natasha, who was a huge spiritualist. So listen to this quote. Every night, Valentino's wife, Natasha, would hold a seance calling forth for the spirit world to help her in her creative undertaking. They would, with a pen and paper in hand, she would go into a trance and she would start writing, okay? After the outpourings were typed out, they were brought to the set the next day and given to the director, and that's what the movies that were made.
Oh my goodness.
So if you go on YouTube and you look at the movies that Valentino made, those scripts were literally handed from the demonic world.
Wow. A script written in a day by automatic writing, and the human mind can't even make that happen, but these demons have already had it planned out. Who's gonna allow us to write through them,
Right.
And they were like a team. Who does that remind you of in the sports world? Where the wife is like doing these spiritual practices.
That was he's a big NFL player. Hold on, he's a quarterback.
His wife was a witch or something.
Yeah, what was his name?
Are you talking about Brady?
Oh my goodness, Brady, yes.
Any superstitions going into the game? Any special thing you carried into the game on Sunday that you had tucked away somewhere?
I did. I always, I've learned a lot from my wife over the years. She's so about the power of intention, and believing things that are really going to happen. And she always makes a little altar for me at the game because she just wills it so much. And so she put together a little altar for me that I could bring with pictures of my kids. And I have these little special stones and healing stones and protection stones that she has me wear a necklace and take these drops she makes. And I say all these mantras. And I stopped questioning her a long time ago. I did. I just shut up and listened. And at first I was like, this is kind of crazy. And then about 4 years ago, we were playing the Seahawks and she said, you better listen to me. This is your year, but this is all the things you're going to have to do to win. And I did all those things. And by God, it worked. It was pretty good. And then in 2015, it was about early January. And she said, you know how much I love you? And I said, yeah. And she said, I just want to let you know this is not going to be your year. Oh. And of course we lost. I said, what does 16 look like? And she said, 16 is going to be your year. So it was early January this year. And I said, babe, I asking, like, do we have a chance? And she said, yeah, but you're going to have to do a lot of work and you're really going to have to listen to me. So, man, I listened to her. And right after the game, she said, see, I did a lot of work. You do your work, I do mine. She said, you're lucky you married a witch. I'm just a good witch.
Tom Brady's wife, Giselle, is that her name? Yeah. She was the Victoria's Secret model, who is a witch. Yeah. Yikers. Yeah. So, yes, this stuff still happens today. So, Mae West. You heard of Mae West?
Come on, see me sometimes.
Yeah, look at this guy. He even knows a line from her movies.
Because I used to hear like these cartoons would say and stuff, like Bugs Bunny and all that.
Yeah, that's actually really impressive. You've heard of Mae West?
Nope.
Never heard of Mae West. Wow. Okay, we're not going to digress here too long.
My mom is so proud right now.
So listen to this. This is Mae West right here.
1930s, motion pictures were one of the mainstays of the Great Depression, and attendance to movie theaters skyrocketed.
Hello, folks. I'm up here at Mr. Bowman's Crystal Theater to see the grand opening of premiere of my new picture, I'm No Angel. Of course, I didn't call it I'm No Angel for nothing. Don't forget, come up and see me sometime.
Movie star Mae West was also known as the Queen of Sex and the Statue of Libido. Her work helped to topple the biblical sexual boundaries that were deeply embedded in the people of the early 20th century.
She could have a romance with somebody outside of wedlock.
I've got another man in my life.
It was pretty raw.
I don't know how many that makes.
It was pretty raunchy for that era.
Well, when I'm good, I'm very good. But when I'm bad, I'm better.
No star had greater impact in the long run than Mae West. Mae West was a one-woman sexual revolution.
So here's what's going on here. America, you have to understand the history of our country. Like, we are rooted in Christianity. This country had a lot of, like,
Christian values,
Christian morals. During this era, there wasn't a lot of the stuff that we see today. I mean, our media has totally tanked. Dude. We got some pretty evil stuff out there, but that just wasn't really the case. And here comes along Mae West, which toppled over the biblical understanding of sex inside of a marriage, right? So listen to this. This is Mae West's psychic, okay? His name was Kenny Kingston, and he's reflecting back on Mae West in her life. When she was upset that no one had been able to come up with a script idea, she would walk about her room saying, forces, forces, please come and help me with this script. You talked about this.
I would do this kind of stuff all the time.
Right?
I would say, help me with this path, help me with this thing that I'm trying to do, and I used to do automatic writing.
Oh, and when you actually invite the spirits in, so did you ever actually have experience of that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, I would be trying to figure out, what my next steps were, and I would ask for guidance, and then I would just start writing, and I would do automatic writing.
Would you feel your hand actually moving, or is it just like whatever was coming out of your mind?
It's more just like whatever comes out of your mind, you just start writing stuff down, and then all of a sudden you have all these ideas, and it starts to make sense.
Wow.
Did you feel like they were your own, or you knew exactly where they were coming from?
I felt like I knew I was getting guidance. I was getting
like
supernatural
you were
guidance.
talking about that download, that instant knowledge right then.
Yeah, download would be different. It's more auditory, where the writing, it just flows.
Wow. So she would get these forces to come into her and help her write a script, and then this is what would happen. She would begin to hear the voices, images, the plot was revealed to her. She would summon the stenographers and tell them to work around the clock, and she would lie in bed in a trance-like state, dictating as the spirits entered her, and she would write the scripts and hand those to the director, and that's what they'd make. This is way back when. We don't even get into the modern age yet, right? So you look at Mae West and the movies that she made. Remember, she mentioned earlier, I Am No Angel, right? Or she has like the sex at the sensational Mae West. Yeah. So these are topics that we look at today. We don't even bat an eye because we're so used to sexual bombardment, right? But this was racy stuff back then.
When you think about it, it's like the devil is writing his Bible. Think of how the Christian Bible was written. John on the Isle of Patmos, getting these visions and writing for our time today.
That is an excellent point. He's working through people, and really, like, I know this is going to sound really weird, but the Bible is a collection of a bunch of stories, and that's how we learn about God.
Right.
The devil has a collection of stories in a visual format, and that's how we learn about the devil's world. That's what he's doing. How about this character, Marilyn Monroe?
Okay.
Heard of her? Okay, heard of her? Do you know what's really interesting? There is really not a person I have met yet, no matter what age, other than somebody that's really, really little. But if you're old enough to like watch, play on the internet or watch TV, then most people have heard of Marilyn Monroe. This person is massively famous. So here's a little video clip with Marilyn Monroe.
Monroe attributed her ability to affect the public to other entities that would inhabit her and take her over. She was known for entering into deep trances before each scene. One of Monroe's close personal psychics recalled how she would draw attention from the spirit world, asking for their guidance.
When she saw a camera, any camera, she lit up and was totally different. The moment the shot was over, she fell back into her not very interesting position. And I don't know how to explain that.
That's almost verbatim what Beyonce says about Sasha
Yeah, that's
Fierce.
exactly
She's
what I was
like,
thinking of.
I'm more reserved and I'm not very interesting, but when I'm Sasha, I can sing strong and I can do all this stuff.
Sasha is my alter ego. And when people see me, sometimes I think that when they meet me and they speak with me, they're expecting Sasha. And I'm really kind of shy, and not really shy, but more reserved, and nothing like Sasha. She can do things that I cannot do when I'm in rehearsal. I mean, I can try, but then it just doesn't happen. I can sing notes and sing strong and do all these things that when I'm just by myself, I can't do.
The second that the cameras turn on, she's someone else.
Mhm.
The second you turn them off, she's totally someone else. And he says, I can't explain that.
It's interesting how they attach this man to these people.
Mhm.
You're saying the same spirit guide for the previous person is the
Mae
same one
West.
for
Yeah, that was
Marilyn.
Kenny Kingston. Yeah, yeah.
That's
Isn't that what you
intentional,
think?
yeah.
Yeah. These guys are around a lot of these dirty, like, you know, spiritualistic things. That's why we see so much of the New Age. If the stuff that's being written is coming from these psychics and these people who are communicating with spirits, then what's the message that we're getting when we sit in a dark room and stare at a blinking light, right? Listen to what Marilyn Monroe says. Jacqueline Hyde, I'm more than two. I'm so many people, they shock me sometimes. I wish it was just me. She was tormented by the voices that she heard in her head, all the communication.
And I can relate to that. You know, you get to a point where you allow so much in your mind, and it's like, who's the real me? And it's like, I'm just trying to discover myself. And then when I come out of it, you see, you know, all these different thoughts and emotions that would come over you that they weren't me.
Yeah.
And it gets exhausting.
Right, and if you're opening up your chakras, you're opening up your third eye, you're opening your life to these spirits, they're just coming and flowing right into you, and then it's like confusing to you, you know?
She was tormented, but that's just the devil being in character. For the devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I come, the Lord comes to give life and to give it more abundantly.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. How many guys remember I Love Lucy?
Oh, I know that.
Yes. I know.
Yeah? Have you ever seen the episodes?
No, I haven't seen episodes, but I know the show.
You've never seen an episode?
Wow.
That's impressive.
I have no idea what is that.
Are you kidding me?
At least I know what it is.
Wow, Lucille Ball.
The title makes me think, I love Lucifer, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, right. Lucille Ball's her name, so I think that's where they came up with the idea of the show. But what's really interesting is she always had a particular phrase in the show that she was. It was a comedy show about her and her husband, and they were always having these like funny like problems and stuff, and she was kind of the wild one, and her husband was always trying to like clean up after her mess and stuff like this. She always had this saying where she would say, like something would go wrong, and she would be like, "Don't tell my husband, don't you dare."
I'll tell him the truth. Don't you dare!
And so she was always lying to her husband, but it was all wrapped in laughter. So it was like, you kind of like didn't want her to tell the husband because she would get caught or whatever like that. So there's a lot of little subtleties like that. And what people don't realize about Lucille Ball is she was actually a film actress when she started. She wasn't a TV actress. In fact, if you were a film actress and you were to go down to the TV, it was like taking a step down. These were the low people, like TV. And so everybody wondered, why did you go from the big screen to all of a sudden becoming a TV actress? And it was because of this actress, Carole Lombard. And listen to this. It was the spirit of actress Carole Lombard who guided Lucille Ball into taking a chance on television and accepting the role to star in this television show called I Love Lucy. Now listen to this. The glamorous comedian who died in an airplane crash in 1942 appeared to Lucy in 1951.
What?
What's going on here?
Why is it always a crash?
Spirit of
What's going on here?
She's supposed to be dead.
She's dead. So the spirit comes back and tells Lucille Ball, hey, you should choose this job as going and being this television star. And if you do, you will be famous. Now, why would the spirit world care?
That's a good point.
Because Satan has an agenda. He wants to propagate his message, you know?
Go all the way back to what each one of the shows had in it. There was elements of lying, you know, doing things deceitfully behind their back, but it was all wrapped in this laughter, and it's just breaking down the moral code of everybody in society. So the devil's got time.
It goes back further than that. Teaser, okay? We're actually planning on making a documentary about this, but you go way back and look at how technology was developed. A lot of these scientists, guys, they were into, some of them would go to seances every night. And, you know, a lot of them admit that the spirits offered to help them and assist them in their work. I always tell people, ask yourself this question. why does a spirit want to help develop technology? Right? Especially mass media, because it's a teaching tool.
And I think
Jumping into our generation now.
We're jumping up to our generation, so
Cool.
I'm leading you into some actors and actresses that you guys might be familiar with. This particular gentleman, his name is Alan Moore, that we're going to talk about. He was a comic book writer. He's written From Hell, Swamp Thing, Watchmen, V for Vendetta. Are these any things that you guys have heard of?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to show you a clip of Alan Moore and what he really is into. He follows this snake god, interesting that it's a snake god, called Glycon. And Glycon is where he gets a lot of his inspiration from, but listen to this.
What's in it for you, though, following Glycon?
I believe that every single individual human being should probably make their own peace with the universe. I mean, we're all of us different emotionally, we're all different physically, intellectually. It would be really odd if we were all the same spiritually. So, I mean, that's why I have a problem with religion, per se, because religion, the very word, it comes from the same root word as ligature and ligament, and it means to be bound together in one belief, which I find a bit creepy and a bit unnatural.
You can't have that conversation with a Christian fundamentalist. Yeah.
The kind of what we call fundamentalism these days is basically entirely based upon 1930s tent show revivalism.
Right.
It goes back no further than about 80 years. And yet it's a very frightening and dangerous mindset because, I mean, as far as I understand it at the moment, there are genuine worries that, certainly in America, that this could actually negate science, that it could drag us back into a new dark ages.
That's so ridiculous.
Anybody got any thoughts on what he said there?
It all sounds great, right? It all sounds great. That's something that I would have totally resonated with. Like, how could we all be the same? How could we all have the same beliefs? You know, we're different people. But we're different in the kingdom of God, and we all have our own things to bring to the table, and we can have a relationship with the Creator. That's what it's about, and that's what He wants for us. And this is just, it's become so lonely. You're just kind of figuring it all out, and you're getting help and guidance from these beings, but there's no basis, there's no truth.
Do you hear the kind of New Age philosophy that he's saying?
Oh,
here,
yeah.
though? Because it's like, have any belief that you want,
Right.
just not which one.
Right.
Christianity. Yeah, right? Fundamentalist Christianity, that one's wrong, but everything else is okay. That seems to be what I'm hearing with the whole New Age movement as well, is it's literally like, there's all these different paths all over here, except for that one path right here is going to keep you in the darkness, and that's called Christianity. You know, Alan Moore, when he actually was, I think he was turning 40 years old, he threw a party, and he all of a sudden wanted to do something kind of wild, and so he decided that he was going to become possessed at the party. And he decided that he was going to become this magician. And so all of a sudden, it was like a lightning bolt hit him, and things got a bit strange, he says. And after looking back, he was probably in some sort of borderline schizophrenic state. He found himself seemingly in conversation with some sort of entity. Its presence surrounded his head, moving and speaking lucidly to him. And he said, I was very spaced out, God-struck. You babble for a while like an idiot, but I must have been unbearable for 2 or 3 months, and now I've integrated that into the rest of my life.
Wow,
Okay?
embraced it.
Yeah, so here's what's happening. He's now incorporating this into his writing. So when he sits down and he writes those comic books, he's asking those spirits to help him in that writing, and whatever he's written in that is with the movies that they're making. And when you go to the theater and you see any movie from this man right here,
It's
what
right
are you
into
watching? You're watching the very thoughts that the demons want the world to know.
Wow.
It's interesting to me, the image that he has behind him is very similar to the images you see for Kundalini.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You know, and this is something that I pulled from him. So, I mean, he's very into this. I mean, we covered this in The Replacement Gods as well. There's a lot of interviews with him in the documentary that we made, and it goes into much more depth. He talks more about this idea of tapping into the spirits and all this kind of stuff. The writer, do you remember the TV show American, or 6 Feet Under?
Heard of it, I never
It was an HBO show, and it was like a bunch of guys that worked at a mortuary, right? You've heard of the movie American Beauty? Okay, so True Blood. These are kind of older, but these are things. The writer of this was very much so into automated writing as well. How about Hugh Jackman? And you guys know who Hugh Jackman is. Okay? Well, do you know how he became to be an actor?
Sold a soul.
No, but it's very interesting. He went on the BBC and he was telling the backstory of how he actually got his first gig. Listen to this.
It's interesting your path to acting, because you're a journalism student, weren't you?
So I'm still on hold. My journalism is still on hold. I literally was just putting it off, so I took a few part-time classes and worked at a gym. And at the gym, I met this woman who, this isn't a lie, it sounds like a made-up story, but I was actually joining her up, and she was looking at me and she just went, like that. I said, is everything all right? She said, you don't understand. I'm like, Rich, you've got to get into acting immediately. I said, well, I'm doing a few part-time classes. Funny you should mention it. She said, no, you're going to be a big star, and I want you to meet this woman, Penny Williams. I said, who's Penny Williams? She said, she's an agent. Well, I met her, and she's still my agent. And the day after, I did an audition and landed a role on Neighbours.
The very next day, he gets an audition and books the role. Why would a spirit literally talk through a medium and tell him, you need to go talk to this lady over here and you will be famous? Why are they picking him?
Why him? Because he's willing to do what they want.
You know what? I think the spirit world is paying attention. They know, who's going to be an agent of them or who's not, and they're literally directing. It's like God is choosing people to go out and herald his message as well. The devil's doing the same thing. He's hand picking. I want this one. I want this one. And so when we watch these movies, we often think like, man, that person got lucky. You know what? You hear stories like this and it's like, I don't know how much luck is involved in this.
Right.
These guys are literally being hand-picked by the other side. Why? Because they're the preachers and pastors. They're the evangelists of Satan's messages.
And they're often like the most attractive people, like the beautiful people are in Hollywood because Satan wants to pick a good representative, somebody that people they want to listen to and want to look at and stuff.
And if they don't naturally look like that, they're very open to doing whatever it takes to look like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You guys have heard of Jeff Bridges?
Yep.
Yes. He has won an Oscar for a movie called Crazy Heart, where he portrayed a singer. And he's being interviewed on Good Morning Today. And listen to the way that the interviewer asks him how he got into his role. And listen to the words that she uses.
And Entertainment Weekly writes about you that you are a generously unvain actor, so appealing in midlife spread. In other words, you had to gain some weight and kind of channel this kind of sadness, really.
Yeah.
It's very powerful the way you do it because it's about a guy who redeems himself, who finds basically redemption. Who are you channeling? Were you channeling Christopherson? Johnny Cash comes to mind?
Yeah, a bit,
In my long career, played so many extraordinary women that basically I'm getting mistaken for one. And no, really, I'm very clear about the fact that I'm the vessel for other people's stories and other women's lives.
I try to allow the spirit of the character to live through me. So I just try to encompass and allow myself, I'm almost the vehicle to channel the spirit of the character through.
So this is literally a very common thing that's about acting. I took acting classes when I was in Los Angeles, and it's very interesting because the classes that teach you the real methods of acting is basically to empty yourself of who you are, so you can allow this other character to come in and flow through you. You can see the new age philosophy there, right? And why so many of these actors are kind of caught into this, whether they know it or not. But it's like literally the same language is what we heard you talking about.
Connecting your higher self.
That's right.
Higher self is a big thing. You want to anchor your higher self.
That's right.
So you have to kind of, meditate, clear your mind, and then your higher self can come in and live the life of your dreams.
And letting other lives from these people that you're playing come out in you.
Right. So
Spike Lee. You're familiar with Spike Lee?
Yes.
You ever heard of a movie called Malcolm X?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, historical movie about Malcolm X, right? In fact, when you watch the movie, the words that they used were literally taken verbatim from Malcolm X's speeches. Denzel Washington was one of the actors that was in there.
Incredible job.
Yeah, he did an incredible job. And so Spike Lee is sitting here having a conversation with Denzel Washington, and they're talking about this one specific scene where Denzel continued on past the script. Listen to what he says.
Malcolm X really wasn't hard because I had done the play. Chipped him on the roof. Yeah, so I felt comfortable that I could do it. And, I got the gift of gab anyway. So I was cutting and pasting his speeches. Remember, we were shooting one day out there, and you just kept loading the cameras up. I just kept going. I was making it up.
You were making it up, Denzel.
No, I wasn't making it up. I was using...
I know, but even that, though, I was a witness to this. You channeled the spirit of Malcolm. Because I remember one specific time where, we went to Malcolm's speeches. And once you finished with the text, you kept on going.
Right.
And we I didn't say cut.
right.
We kept
loading the camera.
We kept loading the camera. And there were many times in that film where we all had to pinch ourselves because we thought we saw the reincarnation of Malcolm. It wasn't about impersonation.
Right. You trying to capture the spirit.
The spirit, and just trying to, act as well. I'm going to look like him and that. But that's just surface stuff.
So
That's
check
crazy.
this out. Wow. This is just his conversation with Denzel. So Spike Lee and Denzel start talking about other actors and other movies, and Denzel gets a phone call from Will Smith because he was going to play Ali. And so he wanted to prepare for the role. Listen to the advice that Denzel Washington gives him.
The surface stuff.
Will Smith called me before he started Ali, and he was saying, what should I do? You know, and he did the voice for me, and he had it. I said, I think you should go to Michigan and pray with Ali. When I did Malcolm X, I would just pray every morning, you know, before I came out of that trailer. I was like, Malcolm, come on, you know, because it's not for me, right? You know, it's for him and for those, hopefully, that he affected.
Wow, this is like gold, man.
Dude.
And it's them saying it.
That's deep.
not us.
That's deep, dude. Yeah. Come on, Malcolm. Come into me so I can act this. Dude, these spirits are messing with these guys.
Yeah. And he's coming from a good place, yeah. He's wanting to represent him and represent the culture in the best way he can. And it's just, but he's praying to something.
Inviting that spirit
invite it
in.
I like that, to something, so it's not actually Malcolm.
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And he's giving advice to another actor saying the same thing.
Phil, Oscar award-winning actor Denzel Washington told 60 Minutes exactly how he brings forth his best performances.
Basically what I did was got on my knees and sort of communicated with the spirits. And when I came out, I was in charge.
Powerful scene.
Powerful scene. I couldn't have acted that. I couldn't have written that down and made a decision to play that.
So going back to this conversation where he's having with Pharrell Williams, listen to this. Spike Lee's telling Pharrell about this experience as well.
It's like you're writing a treatment. I finally called cut. I called Denzel. I said, Denzel, where did that come from? I mean, you went on 5 minutes after what was scripted. I said, Spike, I don't know.
5 minutes, he rolled beyond the script. And I even saw another interview with Spike Lee, and I'll see if I can find it, where he was literally like reading the script, and he was just like, it's not even on the script. And then he's pulling up on his phone and stuff like this and reading the real speech, and Denzel is spitting off the real speech word for word.
See, that's the thing, they're inviting these spirits in, and then what? Like, it's inside of you. When they decide when they come out.
And he's like sitting there going, hey Denzel, like, where'd you get that? And he's like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, there's something going on under the surface here that's pretty wild. So listen to this. You guys heard of Jack Nicholson?
Yes.
Okay. So do you know who Shirley MacLaine is? Shirley MacLaine is one of the actresses that was hugely involved in the New Age movement.
Okay.
Okay. So she's at the AFI, which is like American Film Institute award show or whatever, and they are honoring Shirley MacLaine, and she's telling where she gets her inspiration from, and she's talking about this one scene that she did with Jack Nicholson. Listen to what she says.
When people ask me, who is my role model in this business, I say you, Jack. I think why you're my role model has to do with the way you relate to vanity, or the lack of it. I mean, I have to tell you, I just adore the fact that you don't care how you look. I adore how you commit to the part. You don't care about your little bald spots. You don't care about your stomach. Remember that wonderful stomach. You don't care about your wrinkles. This is all extremely important to me. Doing a love scene with Jack Nicholson is absolute middle-aged bliss. I mean, to lie in bed and rehearse a love scene, it's so funny, it's so spontaneous, it's so open. We're lying in bed and we're rehearsing the astronaut Garrett Reed love scene. He's explaining to Aurora what it was like to walk on the moon. She's loving it. And then we launched into the first take, and 2 voices came out of you. Do you remember this? 2 voices, and they were simultaneous words, but they were 2 levels of sound. And I looked over at you. You were amazed. I was amazed, and you said, "Well, sure, Cheryl, I'm many different people." I said, "No, Jack, you're channeling."
So they all know exactly what she's talking about. That's why they're like...
because they all talk about that. They
2
get it.
different voices simultaneously. You couldn't try that.
Yeah.
You cannot produce that.
No idea.
You know
That's
what
like
I mean?
textbook demonic possession.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've
That
actually
doesn't even-
heard of that before, too.
That doesn't even feel new age in what I saw. That seems like straight demonic.
Right? These guys are literally tapping into this spiritualistic world to help them undertake these crazy roles. That's why I really honestly believe you see a performance from a particular actor and it is powerful. You're just like, that was so amazing. But you gotta think, man, there's some demonic forces working through these people that they were alive when Malcolm X was there. That demon probably saw firsthand the way Malcolm X acted, and he's acting through, Denzel and going for that. How about this particular actor? You guys recognize him?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, we played this on one of our other shows, but I wanted to show you just for this case. So when he was preparing for Ghost Rider, this is what he did to prepare for his role.
You've developed an acting discipline that you've referred to as nouveau shamanic. Is that correct?
Yeah.
What are the core principles?
I've been told that all actors really hail from the early medicine men and the shamans in the villages pre-Christianity, where they would put on masks and act out, and really they were probably pretty crazy, but they would go in and find answers to questions. Today you're called psychotic if you do that, but it's all semantics. So what I would do is I'd put on Afro-Caribbean paint, like a white and black paint, and black out my eyes so I look like this sort of Afro-Caribbean voodoo icon. And then I would sew in bits of Egyptian artifacts that were thousands of years old into my costume and gather some onyx or tourmaline or something that was meant to have vibrations. And who knows if it works or doesn't, but for me it was an idea of like trying to stimulate my mind or trick my mind into believing I was this character from another dimension. And I would walk on the set and then wouldn't speak to anybody, wouldn't say a word, so I projected this aura of horror, which created fear in my fellow actors, which then inspired me to believe I really was this character.
Exciting, I'd love to be on set with you.
Yeah, thanks.
He was feeding off of everybody's fear.
But you think of also, he's taking real shamanic artifacts, putting them, I mean, you don't see that in the movie. You don't know that something's sewn into the inside of his thing. And I think that all these things, like, there's a reason why you can be demonically tortured. Like, have you ever actually been tortured, any of you guys? Have any demonic spirits or anything kind of like messed with you a little bit?
Oh yeah.
Yeah? Was it something that you potentially had in your home that allowed them access to you? I mean, how do they get into your realm and are able to even interact with you, and why don't they just interact with everyone?
That's a great question.
Yeah, that is a good question.
I think that literally we give them access through various different things. In fact, there's a guy named John Todd who really was big with the music industry, worked at Capitol Records, and they would pray that the demons would go with every single record out. And he says, you want to know how many demons are in your home? Go count your records. And that was literally like, they knew that the spirits could follow those records, and then that gave them access into your home.
I got rid of I had all these channeled books. I got rid of all of them. I threw them all in the recycling bin.
Yeah. I mean, it's why we're so hard on Disney and stuff, right? All the magic and sorcery and all that kind of stuff that comes with Disney, because I believe that it gives the demons access, just like he's talking about. I put these sorceress types of things in my body, and then all of a sudden now I can act this type of particular way. All right. So you guys know Robin Williams. He often was very tortured as a comedian, heard lots of things in his life. I've seen interviews with him, like talking about all these like voices that he would hear in his head. And he was asked by US Weekly, what is his process? How is his acting? And he said, it's literally like possession. All of a sudden you're in and you get this energy and it starts going. And later on in the article, he says, but there is also this thing, it is possession. In the olden days, you'd have been burned for it, but there's something empowering about it. I mean, it's a place where you can be a Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde, where you can actually become this other force. So he was explaining that acting to him was literally like having something come in, take possession over you, and we celebrate it in our world, whereas in the olden days you'd have been burned.
You ever wonder why they were burning people? I mean, I'm not for them burning people, but you ever wonder why, like what they were trying to protect society from?
I mean, I think that demonic possession has always been a fearful thing, and you think of today, look, the Venom movie that comes out, right? It's like now the guy that's possessed by this crazy evil thing is like the hero?
Yeah, I think
like, what is this?
Taking Old Testament principles and using them for the modern time, because you look back in the Old Testament, it's like, if there's a witch among you,
throw out the can.
You get stoned.
Like, wow,
so they're just doing the modern equivalent and burning them or drowning them or.
Yeah, but it's not even, I don't think they see it as a demonic spirit that they're entering. I think they see it as like a force, an energetic force of the universe that we can use freely, so it makes it feel and sound safe for other people.
Excellent point, because I see that as the same deception that happens in the New Age.
Right.
It's the demonic world that's literally communicating with you and tinkering with you, but they give it this it's this energy, it's this whatever orb, and to the actor, it's just, it's my process of how I get involved in this.
Right. I don't think some of them, maybe some of them do. I don't think some of them really understand what's happening like I didn't.
Right.
I didn't understand what was happening.
Right. And I think that's why it is a deception. If possible, the devil will try to deceive the very elect, That's his method. When Leonardo DiCaprio was in a movie called Total Eclipse, the director, Anisco Holland, said this about Leo. Leo's like a medium. He opens his body and his mind to receive messages coming from another person's life. A totally different director, when he was in Romeo and Juliet, Baz Luhrmann, says this about Leo. With Leo, you might see 30 people come out of him in one day.
Wow.
And you think, like, have you seen a Leonardo DiCaprio movie?
Yeah.
Right? All of us
And it's
have.
like such a
What's
spectrum.
the message that that demonic world is wanting us to learn? How about Keanu Reeves? Keanu is a very complex guy with lots of demons into him. I was trying to tap into that and utilize that, says director Taylor Hackford from Devil's Advocate.
Wow.
Man.
Openly admitting these guys have demons.
Do you
Johnny
think there's
Depp,
some kind of conspiracy behind Leonardo DiCaprio not getting an Oscar till recently, after all the magnificent projects he's done?
I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. Some actors like Johnny Depp, same sort of thing. He's
Yeah.
been in all these amazing movies, yet I don't think, ever won an Oscar.
It's interesting because the one director said, 30 different people, and here you have Johnny Depp saying, I am 30 different people. It's like, what's with the 30?
Right?
Is that how many Legion was or something?
Legion, I think, is thousands, but yeah. But isn't that kind of interesting?
It
Johnny
is.
Depp told Vanity Fair, I know I have demons, and I don't know if I want to get rid of them altogether. I would like to experience them in a different
I'm trying to
way."
understand myself, and they're dealing with 30 plus themselves.
Right,
Oh my goodness.
Think of all
Wow.
those little voices that you have to hear. And that's why I think you see Jim Carrey, literally he cracked his mind. He's emptied himself so many times, he's become so many different people that it's like he lost who Jim Carrey was. Heath Ledger, listen to what the Los Angeles Times reported, Heath Ledger's creepy performance seems to have summoned up demons no one could imagine accessible to him. Like, that's the Los Angeles Times. They're not like literally going, oh yeah, there's a spiritual war going on there. They're like literally like, yeah, this guy had access to demons that other people normally don't.
Speaking of Jack Nicholson, when Heath Ledger died of whatever, suicide, drug overdose, whatever it was, these people ran up to Jack Nicholson and told him that he had died, and he actually said, I warned him, because Jack Nicholson was the first Joker, and he said that he warned Heath Ledger not to do that part.
That's right. Because these guys are invoking spirits, and they often can't get rid of them. And I believe he evoked a spirit called Asmodeus. And when he got Asmodeus into him, it made him go insane, and he was eating, sleeping pills like it was going out of style, and couldn't ever get peace. So how about Marlon Brando?
Heard of him.
Yeah, he said something really interesting about acting. Listen to what he says about it.
Why do you downgrade acting as a profession? You've said over the years it's not a fit profession for a man.
People lie constantly, every day, by not saying something that they think, or saying something that they don't think, or showing something that they don't feel, or trying to give the appearance of feeling something that they don't actually. I said that, didn't I?
Yeah, but that's not acting.
That is acting.
So Marlon Brando describes acting as a lie, right? So what's kind of interesting about this is he actually got into a lot of trouble with this particular interview right here. In fact, the acting business was pretty upset at him to be like, why are you calling acting a lie? And so Johnny Depp was then interviewed by Larry King. And this is many years later. Johnny Depp is a real big fan of Marlon Brando. And so the topic comes up of what Marlon Brando said about acting. Listen to how Johnny Depp answers this.
It is a weird profession.
As Marlon said, Marlon had the best definition of acting that exists. It's a strange job for a grown man, and that's it.
Do that good.
It's a strange job for a grown man. That's right.
But he called something else that people in the business got mad at. He said it on our show. He called it lying for a living.
Right.
And most actors say they're not lying. Did you think that was an unfair expression?
I think it's totally right. Yeah, it's lying. It is lying. Why wouldn't it be? You can make it lying. You can make it not lying. You can find your own truth, but it's still a lie. You know what I mean? You're going to go to the craft service table. You're not Henry VIII, man. You're going to have some Fritos or whatever, man.
Have a donut and then go, yeah.
Right? He's not going to eat a giant chicken leg and chuck it somewhere and start screaming wench, right?
So even Johnny Depp goes, listen, let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
You are lying for a living. Shia LaBeouf, you guys know who this actor is?
Yes.
He's kind of an actor that's in our modern world here. This is what he told USA Today. Acting is a con. At the end of the day, you lie for a living. You're deceitful. And that is my goal, to be the best possible liar.
Wow.
Very interesting. Anton LaVey, do you guys know who this is?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay, the guy who started the Church of Satan. Listen to this quote. Television is the major mainstream infiltration for the new satanic religion. He even goes on to say the TV set or satanic family altar has grown more elaborate since the 1950s, and from a tiny little fuzzy screen to huge entertainment centers covering entire walls with several TV monitors.
What did he call the TV set?
The Satanic Family Altar.
I think
It's interesting when you do an etymology of the word entertainment. It's made up of 3 words, and the words are enter, which means obviously to come in, and the word tain is from a Latin word, and it means to like literally grasp, hold, possess, occupy, or control. Meant literally means to keep in that state or to hold into that state. So just the word entertainment means literally to come in, possess you, and hold you in that state of possession. Did we talk about Toy Story on the last one?
Not at all.
So when Toy Story 2 came out, do you guys remember the little dog Slinky?
Yes.
Yeah, he actually was voiced by an actor named Jim Varney. He actually died of lung cancer, and when he died, they wanted to replace him, and they searched for years. And they ended up landing on an acquaintance of Jim Varney's, and he was actually able to channel his late dead friend.
A voice.
Just the voice. So this is actually coming from Entertainment Weekly. Okay, so this is not some obscure article or whatever right here. And it says in here in the article, Jim Varney, who died of 50 years old, after the release of Toy Story 2, then they found this guy Clark, and Clark says, "I went in and I invoked and channeled Varney's spirit just to get his voice."
What?
We talked a little bit about The Dark Knight. You guys remember? Heath Ledger, when he portrayed the Dark Knight, was a very, very creepy performance. In fact, to prepare for that role, he locked himself in a hotel room for 4 months. 4 months.
That's crazy.
And he literally only slept for 2 hours a night. Okay, if you don't sleep, you will literally go insane after a short amount of time. But he locked himself in this hotel room, and he had a journal. In fact, you can look up the journal. I didn't have time to show it here, but you can just go on the internet and look up the journal. And it was full of disturbing images. And so what he would do is he would sit there and focus on these really disgusting things, think about the worst thoughts you could possibly think about. And when he came out, Heath Ledger's known as a method actor, where he never breaks the role. So it's like they let the character inhabit them so much that even when the cameras are not rolling, they are literally not Heath Ledger, they are the Joker.
Wow.
For that entire time that they filmed.
I bet he didn't have a lot of friends during that time period.
Everybody on set, I read all these articles, everybody on set said that they were so creeped out. When he would show up on set, you could just feel this presence that was unworldly. And
Who was the villain in Black Panther? Do you remember something Jordan?
Yeah, the guy.
Michael B. Jordan. Yes. He was in an interview saying that he had to go to therapy for months after playing that role.
So it was no real plan. I didn't have an escape plan either. So like every day was just going into this place, and I just tried to stay there as long as I could. And then when it was all over, I think just being in that kind of that mind state, that real unapologetic, just real, like, whatever all the time, kind of kept it caught up with me, and like I got a little depressed. It was tough for me for a minute,
Really?
Just readjusting to being around the people that care about me, getting that love that I shut out for a long time. Like I shut out love. I didn't want love and affection. I wanted to be in this lonely place as long as I could in order to kind of capture the essence of what Eric Stevens was, what Killmonger was. So when we wrapped the film, I'm like, in my mind, I was like, okay, cool, go back to, regular life, get back to LA, be cool. But it was a little tough for me at first to kind of like accept
It was hard
that
just
love.
to lay him down and be done with it.
Yeah.
How did it take you a while?
It took me, I don't really know exactly when I came out of it, but I went to therapy, what I'm saying? I started talking to people, started unpacking a little bit.
I find that so interesting. I find that so interesting because I think the body doesn't know the difference. I remember having this conversation with a famous actor once about Anthony Hopkins. I was saying, Anthony Hopkins, I feel for you because, all the stuff you're taking in, you do so well. And he said, I used to not think about it, but as I've gotten older, I do think about it, because he was saying that he had just done a film and he had said to the director he was going to do one wide shot and one close-up because he had to have a heart attack, because he didn't want to put his body in that state too many times, because your body doesn't know the difference when you get yourself into that state. And so that's why I think it's interesting for people to hear that even though you're playing this character, sometimes the essence of that, the energy of that still remains.
1,000%.
Still remains.
Many actors have done this. In fact, they actually bring a psychologist onto set in case they break down completely on set.
Wow.
You know, these people are putting themselves through.
That's really eye-opening.
So I want you to listen to this interview of this guy who played Mr. Two-Face, the actor, and he was in only one scene with Heath Ledger. They actually, even though he's in the whole movie, they only had one scene together, and it was in a hospital scene. So he's describing what it was like to work with Heath Ledger when he came in the room. Listen to this.
My one experience with Heath on the film was our scene together in the hospital bed, which is really my only scene with him. And it was, I was in the hospital bed that day, and I thought, well, I don't really have any lines. What am I going to do? And I had no idea what was going to happen. And so got in the bed, and they were lighting, and Chris was walking around and doing things. And then Heath came around, and Heath was always in character. So he would come around and, you know, be talking to himself in the corner, like this. And then he would come up, I was laying there, and I was watching him the whole time. And he came up and would walk around me like this. And I would watch him, and I would watch him. He'd walk around the hospital bed like this. I'd watch him. Didn't say anything for maybe an hour. He would walk around. And then we'd watch him, and then he'd start saying his lines. And I would watch him, boom, watch him come around the bed like this. And then all of a sudden my hand would go up like this, and he caught my hand. So we just went through this organic process of developing this scene, which was really nothing. And then when we came time to shoot, we had this thing beautifully choreographed, and you know, we never said a word to each other.
Wow.
Yeah. And then it was a long day, and we walked out back to our trailers, and Heath was here, and I was walking, and he puts his hand on my shoulder, and he goes, "That's what acting's all about."
Isn't that interesting? Wow. So, you know, he's walking around like stuck in this character. And there was actually a lot of people on that set that really were super disturbed by it and talked.
But this is praise, like this is art. This is something people respect.
That's
Someone
right.
literally going insane in
He-
front of you, and you're like, wow, that's amazing.
He won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress for actor for that role. Now, Matthew McConaughey went on Jay Leno, and he was also talking about being a method actor. And some of the other actors that he was working with, Jay was kind of saying, you know, like, they're method actors. Do you have a particular method? And listen to his method.
You have a process you do before scenes, and you've been doing this a long time. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think to relax. Yeah, explain what that is. It's sort of a little meditational chant that I'll get going if it's early in the morning, it's cold, and I've got to get the day started, get my voice loosened up. I'll start. That's right on the mic. Yeah, start just kind of. I just get a little rhythm going. Whatever it is. Whatever you got. Whatever, and it's a different rhythm for every character and every role.
So he does this sort of like meditation and does this mantra, says the same thing over and over and over again. And
a ritual.
Yeah, and remember when we had Leah on, what did she say? Got her into meditation. Like literally, or got her into that space of being able to communicate with the spirits was literally meditation.
Yeah, meditation.
Right? So these method actors, often to get into these roles, they sit there and they meditate and they meditate and they meditate. You guys remember Shirley Temple?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you know what she was actually really known for as a young actress? Like why everybody was enamored with her performances? Do you know kind of like the history of her acting?
No.
She was able to cry on command, which is very difficult for a young child
Wow.
to do. And they would literally go, "Can you cry?" And she would go over to a corner with her mother and meditate and empty her mind, and then she could immediately cry.
Wow.
So there was an actress in a 1981 movie called Possession. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but there's a real famous scene with this actress who played someone that was possessed, and she's like in the subway. And the way that she's like contorting and like moving around, I mean, dude, chills just go up on my spine when I noticed that. And the actress had to have months, if not years of therapy after that, and she said she will never, ever portray a role like that again because it almost took her over. And so when you're watching this real demonic possession, it's real. I mean, this is not like play.
Yeah, I want to know what skeptics, how they logic this. Like, why would somebody need months or years of therapy for playing a part? If people are they're trying to justify it, like, It's just acting. It's nothing, you
Yeah.
know?
And the part took an hour to shoot. You know what I mean? So why would you need years of therapy to literally portray something for an hour?
And they'll just say, well, that person just sounds mentally unstable. Well, a lot of actors must be because they're all having to go through this.
So I screenshotted this just to show you. This is coming from Oprah's YouTube.
official, yeah.
This is her official channel. This is not just someone who, you know, posted something. She was posting
And
this.
she's
like-
not hiding it
No.
because she's putting it back on YouTube.
Proud of it.
Yeah.
That's why when you read the Bible in Ecclesiastes 9 verse 5, it says, "For the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing."
Yes.
If you are channeling something, if some spirit is speaking through you or saying that they were some departed loved one or whatever, that is not your loved one.
Yeah.
That is a demonic entity that is speaking through you.
And she continued on with this interview, right? So she's
the whole thing. You can watch-
directly communicating
Yeah,
with
you-
this demon.
Exactly. You can watch the whole thing.
The Bible has clear counsel to
Right.
not approach, do not talk, do not.
That's right.
Oh my goodness,
That's
that
over
is crazy.
So I wanted to show you Steve Harvey recently invited on someone who could channel spirits.
This is a professed Christian, someone who has a morning show giving devotions.
Really?
This is alarming
Yeah.
to me. Yeah, he's always talking about God.
Well, you hear a lot of people say God, but I never heard
Well,
that he had a
on his-
devotional
yeah,
show.
mhm. I would, in high school, I would turn on the radio and listen to him before I went to school. He would open the Bible and have this whole
Whoa.
devotional
Yep,
segment.
yep, yep.
Like this
So-
encouraging piece.
So what I find is really interesting, and the reason why I wanted to show this particular clip to you guys is because look at the manner in which these so-called spirits are speaking through this medium, and look at what kind of people it targets. Listen to this.
All right, before the break, Teresa started to read our audience, but Spirit is still communicating with her. Teresa, go for it.
Can you please stand back
I
up,
need
man,
a
with the
drink,
picture?
man. I need some liquor. I need some scotch.
Channeling, you would need more than one scotch, so just...
Yeah,
What happens is, what I asked to be done was to bring forward other souls, but more importantly, your son says, Mom, you wouldn't have known that I was going to depart.
No.
Do you understand that?
Yeah.
He says, nobody knew.
No.
Oh, he also shows me his sweatshirt. So do you have his sweatshirt or his jacket that you wear? Okay. So know that when you wear that, know that his soul is with you. Did you make a blanket or quilt out of his clothing?
I'm starting to, yeah.
Perfect. It means that he supports all of the choices and decisions. So if you don't think that he's at peace, there's no way that I would know that. He says, he also talks about his headstone.
Yes.
He says it's very different. He shows me this big black headstone. I can see my reflection in it. And it's very unique because you have like either something his picture engraved and then some type of saying on there.
It says, come sit with me a while and take a break. And it says 219 for our area code. And it's got a verse of a Harry Chapin song that was kind of like a...
Perfect.
Like
to validate that every choice and decision that you ever made with your son, alive and also departed. He says, I want to thank you for giving me that gift. He says, and I want you, Mom, to know that I live life through your eyes. So I want you to be happy. So know every time you smile, my soul is smiling in heaven. Your daughter shows me the butterflies, ma'am. So do you connect with the butterflies? Perfect. So know that when you see the butterflies, you know that it's the butterfly. Did you do something with your daughter's handprint after she died on a sheet or something, or you did a family handprint?
When my daughter passed away, the nurse at the hospital printed my daughter's hand and her footprint on a cemented heart.
Perfect. So you know to validate that it was her soul's time to leave. Let me ask you this. Was there a point where she got better?
Before she passed away.
Okay, because I said to her, I go, what do you show? She showed me like doing all these great things. And she keeps talking about Disney and all this stuff. And I said to her, I go, well, what is that? She goes, Teresa, she goes, I am so thankful that I was blessed with another brief time here of not being sick. She says, because I was able to do so many things with my family. She says, and I wouldn't have traded that for anything. She goes, but then I went so quickly after that.
Really fast.
She says, Mom, I want you to focus on that time, that extra time I was given back. And I wouldn't have traded that for anything. And she tells me you smell her.
I do.
So know that when you do, know that she's with you at that exact moment. You also have things in your car in memory of her. Does it fall and move like when you're driving?
Yes.
That's her. I said to her, you better be careful. Your mom is going to crash your car.
Okay.
Are you all right?
No, this crazy right here. See,
See,
I sit here. You see, it's crazy to me. You got to go get this book. I'm scared. My hands is wet. You don't even understand. You don't understand. Look at my hand.
Anyway, you get the point.
Satan is so.
What are they targeting,
deceiving,
though?
Dude. They're
Emotion?
going after like.
They're targeting people's ignorance.
Yeah, they're going after Christians who believe that their loved ones are in heaven, and she's giving them a message, and all these emotions are taking over. They're pulling on heartstrings.
The problem is people don't know what the Bible says about what happens when you die. That's the fundamental problem. It's the same problem people had in the mid-1800s, because right around that time, you had a lot of spiritualistic activity, especially in New York. There's a lot of movements that started in within 20 miles of each other. And when you look at the end of the 1800s, 1/3 of Americans would say they identify as a spiritualist. And you think, well, how can that be? This is a Christian nation. We have all these Christian values. The problem is they didn't dissociate the two.
Yeah.
So they said, no, it's all together, right? They had lost that truth about what the Bible says, and so they're completely fine communicating with spirits or
this
whatever.
lady's saying they're in heaven,
Yeah, and if they're being told things that only the family would know, or something that's going on, then all of a sudden it's going to be like, yeah, I totally believe everything you say, and it's real easy to kick you off of kilter.
Speaking of entertainment, Dan Aykroyd, his family's history with spiritualism goes back a long way, back to the 1800s. And for their entertainment, he talks about his grandfather. They would have a medium they would sit around the table at night, and that was their entertainment, is the community to see what the medium has to say. And it would tell them all kinds of stuff, like, there's going to be an earthquake, and tell them, about it, and like when it was going to be and where it was going to be. Funny thing is, it was always right about the event, never right about the timing. But really just interesting, their entertainment, as channeling.
Well, so here's the thing, how do we tell the difference? I know there's verses like 1 John 4 and verses in Ephesians, because it's not only demons that can tell you things about yourself that you haven't shared, also angels can. I remember we had Eric Wilson on the show, and he was talking about that practice of looking at the eye and seeing which part of your body, which organ of your body is having some issues, and he said that's not real, like, medical science, like that's just a demon telling them. And I went to someone like that who is a professed Christian. I know this person, like we study the Bible together, spirit of prophecy, all these things. So as far as I know, she's not willingly or knowingly communicating with demons or opening herself up to that. And she told me things about myself, like I'd said that. She told me that I slept on my left side. How in the world would she know that? So I was like, wow, okay, I guess there's something to this, because you're telling me something personal, you're looking into my eye, and you're telling me what I should improve. He said, no, that's complete, like, demonic influence. So the question is, like, how even the very, if it's possible, even the very elect will be deceived.
That's right.
How could I have known that this is not okay, unless Eric Wilson said something?
That's right. I think, in some situations, God does wink at our ignorance, but I also believe that as best as possible, we should make ourselves aware of these tactics and these tools, because if you have no idea what they are, then it's easy to fall into it. And right now, we don't live in a day and age where information is hard to come by. No. We live in a day and age where it's very easy to come by. So, I think real quick you could do some digging on the internet and ask questions and get to the bottom of that. If I really go to this person, they're telling me things that only I know, what's wrong with this? Be inquisitive about that. Don't just take that in, Spiritualism, defined by the dictionary, is a system of belief, religious practice that communicates through the dead, especially through mediums, right? Now I'm going to give you guys a little sneak peek, because Keith is working on a documentary called Channels. You guys will want to hear this documentary towards the end of the year. I hope that we can get this thing done. But it really goes over the boom of technology in the late 1800s and how spiritualism really was feeding a lot of the things back then. But then we see that same thing in the boom of technology of today. We see the spiritualism ramping up once again. And so the reason I wanted to bring this up, what is spiritualism, what is a medium, and what is that communication? When the devil used the snake in the Garden of Eden, he was using a medium. And, that's when he literally said, you're not going to die if you eat this piece of fruit. But God said, if you eat this fruit, you shall die. So the purpose of spiritualism is literally to change what God said. That's it. All spiritualism is the only servicing function of it is to literally do something different than what God said. That's it. And so what I see in Hollywood is these guys are using spiritualism and channeling different spirits and stuff. Literally what they're going to be doing is showing you either a way of life that's different than what God wants, or they're going to talk about, like anything that you need to do away with the Bible, like what Leah was talking about the other day, and you need to enlighten yourself with this, right? Medium, of course, you look that up in the dictionary, and it just means way to communicate using something. At the very bottom, it's interesting in the dictionary, it uses the word communication, information, entertainment, newspapers, television as a medium. Yeah, right? And the plural form of medium is media. This is once again where the devil is literally calling it what it is, and it just goes over the tops
Go and
of
change that channel.
Exactly,
On
a
the
lot
media.
of our minds. So that's where I think, we've used this verse probably in everything that we've actually produced to the law and to the testimony. If it speaks not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them. So if you balance everything against that, there is a day that honestly will be very confusing.
Yeah.
We know this, that something is brewing in the world stage right now. There is, whether you know prophecy or whether you can see that our world is coming apart, Satan is preparing for his final trick, his final oomph to try to take away the believers of God out of God's fold. That's what the Bible tells us. And the only way that we're going to be able to navigate through this is through standing on the Word of God.
And we're seeing witchcraft on the rise, lukewarm Christianity on the rise, New Age blending of Christianity on the rise. I mean, he's preparing the people to accept this.
2 Thessalonians 2, 9 through 11 says, the coming of the lawless one is in accordance to Satan with all power, signs, lying wonders, and all unrighteous deceptions for those who perish because they did not receive a love of the truth. The Bible says the ones that will fall prey to a lot of these devices are people that didn't train themselves to be in love with the truth. And so another just side note why it's important to not just soak in all these, modern movies and things like this is, man, there's demonic spirits that are working behind the stages. Revelation 3:10 says, because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I will also keep thee from the hour of temptation. So if we stand on the word of God, God will keep us from that hour of temptation. You have something to say?
I was just going to springboard off of that. It's a more biblical counsel that runs right along with 2 Thessalonians and Revelation 13. It says in Deuteronomy 13, if there arise among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, and gives you a sign or a wonder, and the sign or wonder comes to pass wherever he spoke to you, saying, let us go after other gods which thou hast not known, and let us serve them, you shall not hearken to the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams. For the Lord your God proves you to know whether you love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. You shall walk after the Lord your God, and fear him, and keep his commandments, and obey his voice, and you shall serve him, and cleave unto him. And that prophet or that dreamer of dreams shall be put to death, because he has spoken to turn you away from the Lord your God, which brought you out of the land of Egypt, and redeemed you out of the house of bondage, to thrust you out of the way which the Lord your God commanded you to walk in. So shall you put the evil away from the midst of you. So it's a very, very powerful text saying, just because you get, whether it's a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, and I think this has a bit of an application to, broaden that a little bit and talk about people who are mediums or channels or whatever. If they're giving you information and it doesn't line up with the Word of God, well, first of all, it already doesn't line up with the Word of God because they're communicating with, other things that are not godly. And that automatically acts as it right there. The Bible says so. It doesn't even matter if what they say comes to pass. It doesn't matter if it's true. The Bible says don't have anything to do with it.
And we may not have to, kill them. We shouldn't kill them.
No.
But we can act as if they were put away, just
Yeah, they should
disregard
be
the whole
dead
thing.
to us.
Yeah.
So I got to end on this note. How many of you saw The Grinch That Stole Christmas by Jim Carrey?
I did see it.
Bits and pieces.
You saw it? You did not see it. Okay, so Jim Carrey is reflecting on playing this role, and he's another method actor that completely becomes consumed by the other one. But listen to how the language he talks about in this character taking him over and basically said, nope, I'm going to do the movie. You sit down. Check this out.
So, Jim,
Yes.
what does Christmas mean to you?
Every movie I've gotten in my life, I could tell you how that was the absolute manifestation of my consciousness at that time.
I'm the Grinch that stole Christmas.
When I heard I had the part,
Please welcome Jim Carrey!
it's as if I went into a fugue state
Being the Grinch, right?
and Hyde showed up.
That story is just such a part of Christmas, so yeah, it was incredibly important not to screw it up.
What happened after was out of my control. It was not me. I was not making choices based on what Jim does.
Here's your motivation.
He felt it was necessary for him to stay in the character.
We'll improvise. Just keep it kind of loosey-goosey.
At some point, he tapped me on the shoulder and said, sit down. I'll be doing my movie. Action! The attitude was already there. And when you put that makeup on, there's no choice. That nose, the jowls. Universal didn't want the footage we took behind the scenes to surface so that people wouldn't think I was an asshole.
You're going to have people that are going to sue this production for mental stress.
Hey, yeah, there's feelings of guilt, feelings like, damn, I lost control again. To him. It was absurd. It was completely absurd. And some of it becomes a little bit real. When the movie was over, I couldn't remember who I was anymore.
I'm the Grinch. I'm the Grinch.
So you step through the door not knowing what's on the other side. What's on the other side is everything. I know him as well as I can know him. But who do you know, even when they're right in front of you?
Dude, that's scary, man.
Isn't that scary?
Who do you know, even though they're right in front of you?
It's fascinating because it's like in putting that on, it's like he's wearing a mask, and he did another movie called The Mask, right? And he put the mask on and becomes somebody different.
Yeah.
You could never watch the movie the same way again, knowing this.
No. I believe that these guys are literally modern day possession, allowing themselves to be taken over. Like he said, I didn't even know who I was when I came back.
That's what I was just thinking about.
And you see so many interviews of him, like he literally lost who he was. He appeared to go insane because he's just allowed himself to be taken over
He's
so
been
many
shattered
different
in
times.
so many different ways, like multiple personalities. Which one's me?
Yeah. So what does that mean for us Christians today, watching these movies, knowing this is the method that these actors are using and they're portraying demonic entities on screen? It's powerful.
It's like being entertained by demons.
It's powerful. We hope you guys got a little blessing out of this. We don't mean to totally leave you scared. There is a remedy for that, and I believe the remedy is Jesus.